You have found The Flower of Freedom by Deborah J. Reeves. We're on chapter 43, and your chair has been prepared for you. Have a seat. Be comfortable. Put your burdens aside for a while. Rest. Here we go, chapter 43, Solidarity. Oscar went directly to Aki's study, where he was sitting behind his desk, muttering about gravestones and burial plots. When he saw Oscar, he leapt to his feet with eyes like burning coals, and he exclaimed, "You must take Marie home with you. Everything and everyone I get near I destroy. You must save her. The people who pretend to be my friends are saying that I had Paulette murdered. They say that I have designs on Marie." And just as suddenly as he stood, he sat back down and he let out a sob. Oscar went to him, and in a voice that Des had taught him to use, he growled, "We'll do no such thing. When did you start giving in to evil men? We will stand toe to toe with them, and we will defeat them. You will see. You did nothing wrong. Anyone who's willing to take advantage of you at a time like this must be stopped. We will go through this together. You are not alone anymore, Akia." "Oscar, you do not understand. They are certain that Paulette was murdered. They even know who murdered her. He will never be brought to justice. He has been wanted for war crimes for decades, and still he lives in luxury in Argentina. I have never told you the whole story. When the war ended, Paulette and I were just two derelict souls who found refuge in being together. My heart had been shattered by the rejection by Marie's grandmother, and Paulette's was shattered by the loss of the love of her life. He had been a Nazi SS agent who was in charge of the Paris bureau. His name was Hans Schmidt." Oscar sat down in shock. He knew that name. Everyone in the resistance knew and feared that name. Oscar suspected that Desmond had known more than that man's name at its end. It was then that Aki slid a picture of Hans across the desk to Oscar. He heard Oscar's gasp. The funeral at the cathedral was a solemn affair. Aki relied on the undertaker to engage the proper ceremony and protocols. The undertaker and his firm were told to spare no expense. The priest who had married them did the funeral mass. The graveside ceremony was short, and only a very few people were invited back to the penthouse for a meal afterward. The maids outdid themselves, and they produced an excellent buffet lunch that even held pieces of pizza. Aki was not hungry, but he took sustenance in the company of Oscar and Francois, who seldom left his side. They were both worried for Aki. Murder is an ugly business, and it was made uglier by the spurious speculation and gossip, which was even heard in the cathedral during the Mass. People who knew nothing were convinced of shadows. Damien and his parents sat at the back, and they seemed to gloat. Francois knew what they were up to. Bertie and Marie had Philippe, Joseph, and Michaud for support, and two of Marie's classmates, Suzette and Nicole, had been invited as well, and they got a chance to meet Marie's mother for the first time. Michaud's mother befriended Marie's mother, and Marie was grateful once more for the woman's natural warmth and grace. There are some truly lovely people in this world, she reflected. Later that evening, Francois told Aki that he had an appointment to speak with a rabbi that he knew, so that he and Josette and Michaud had to leave. Aki told him how very grateful he was to have his friendship and support at a time like this. When all the guests were gone, Aki and Oscar sat in the salon. Bertie was in his room sleeping, and Marie and her mother were sitting together in Marie's room. Marie said, "See, Mama, it's not as though I'm going without," in response to her mother's worry that she had been too generous in leaving her clothes behind at Christmas. "I think you deserve to have some nice things too, Mama." Within a couple of days, Bertie had to get back to school and Oscar had to get back to work, so they flew out and back to Canada. Marie had to stay behind at the penthouse because she had come down with a terrible cold, and her mother refused to allow her to accompany them to the airport. "Bed," she said with her finger pointing toward Marie's room. Nothing lasts forever, Marie thought with sadness. The end of February was not so far off now, so the grief of leaving Bertie was not nearly as devastating. Marie sneezed her way through the goodbyes with their parents. She blew kisses from a distance. Aki thanked them for coming all this way, and he told them that it meant the world to him. He told them that they must visit any time they wanted, that their door was always open to them, and that they had family in Paris. Soon the driver arrived to take their luggage to the airport. Oscar would not hear of Aki accompanying them. He said he needed rest. He told Aki that he should take it now before he caught Marie's cold. While the driver was at the airport dropping them off, he collected Paulette's suitcase from the airline that had transported it back to France. No one had been eager to see Paulette's final effects, so Aki had called the airline to ask them to hold it until he could send someone, and then he had forgotten all about it. It was creepy to think about her no longer being there to primp and savor the things that seemed to make her life worth living. The driver delivered the luggage to the penthouse. It sat just inside the door for 2 days until Aki plucked up his courage and took the emotion-laden case into Paulette's boudoir to unpack it. That's the end of this chapter. I look forward to seeing you again. Please come. It's never the same without you. Your friend Deborah.